One question people often ask me is, how can I find the right career for me? How can I find a job I love, that I'm happy with, that doesn't bore me, drain me, stress me out, or at least one that doesn't make me feel like I'm wasting my entire life? And it sounds like an easy question, and it should be easy to answer. If only our thoughts were not all clouded and distorted. If our true desires were not swept under the rug all these years. If we only had the courage to admit to ourselves what we really wanted. And I can feel the pain of everyone asking this question. The pain of feeling as though there are no good options. I once asked myself the same question. Let's correct this. I have asked myself this question. How can I find the right career for me? And I am still asking myself this question sometimes. But wait, am I not supposed to have it all figured out already? I'll explain later. So once upon a time, I was this employee with an employee mindset, with a mind encircled by all these artificial fences set up by, well, myself. I was working for a big corporation, and when I asked myself, what is the next step in my career? All that I could think of was, perhaps I'll move to a competitor bank because over there, they'll pay me more and I'll be happier. Or maybe I'll move to that CSR department, corporate social responsibility. At least I'll be doing something useful. But in hindsight, I can't imagine that I ever considered working in that department, but that's a story for another time. Or let's move into the marketing department. They offered me a VP position just 3 years into my career. Those were just lousy, spineless thoughts. But why? Aren't those all very prestigious career moves? Something I could post on LinkedIn, like Chiyan just got promoted to VP of Marketing. Had I been really interested in marketing, then yes, that would have been a good move and I'd be one step closer to my ideal career. But no, those were just spineless thoughts because I was just thinking of what step would be easy and convenient for me, or which move would give me a small added benefit like a 5 or 10K larger paycheck. I just didn't want to think. I just wanted to grab the next best opportunity. My mind was just so acclimated to this whole financial industry, and I couldn't think freely. I know my job was supposed to make me smarter, but instead I just felt dumber. So what changed and what brought me to where I am now? In case you're new to this channel, then just let me give you this quick 10-second introduction. I was a project manager in the banking industry, turned filmmaker and actor, turned content creator, coach, and book author. And now I am pursuing a career in which I am free to decide what I want to work on and also when. It was a super long journey and it looked something like this. But I'm not going to go into that now. Rather, let's talk about what changed in my approach. How I got from being an employee stuck in the rat race with a very limiting mindset to becoming self-employed and going after my dreams. And this is of course not the only method that I used to figure out what the right career for me was, but this was a crucial method that changed the way I looked at my entire career. And this approach I'll talk about in a second will be useful to you whether you are someone who wants to leave the corporate world or if you're someone who just wants to leave a job that drains you, that leaves you feeling empty, and want to find the right career. When thinking about a solution to a problem or an answer to a conundrum, we oftentimes leave out a very important consideration: time. When thinking about how we can improve our careers or be happier in our careers, we oftentimes only think about the pros and cons at one point in time, and that is exactly where the limitation lies. For example, next month, should I apply to company A or company B? Or next year, should I get a promotion? And yes, these are all questions that we need to answer. But these are micro questions for the short term. They improve your life and career in the short term and solve a small problem for you. Perhaps you end up moving to a company with a slightly better work environment, a boss who is a bit nicer, and a slightly higher paycheck. Or you get that master's degree and you have a leg up against other candidates, but you still haven't solved the actual problem, which is, what is the right career for me? You may have improved your career satisfaction by a few percentage points, but in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. You're still moving within that fenced area. If you want to find the answer to this big question, you need to switch your thinking from micro to macro. You have to leave that short-term thinking mode and zoom out. Zoom out of your timeline. Not just to think about the next year or the next decade even. Zoom out so that you can see your entire life. Some of us will live until 80 or 90, but many people, especially of the younger generation and Gen Z, will have the chance to live till 100 or even 110. For simplicity's sake, let's just say if you lead a healthy and productive life, you are going to live until 100 years. 100 years, your entire life. It seems on one hand like a very, very long time. But on the other hand, that is all the time you've got, at least in this life. Remember this, you have lots of time, much more time than you actually need to achieve any of your goals. But if you continue wasting your time on things that do not matter to you, then you will never have enough time. Not in a million years. When thinking short term, you can always use the excuse of there's not enough time, or it's too late to change careers and have lofty dreams. But when you start thinking in terms of a 100-year life, you don't get to use that excuse anymore. Because you have enough time to start a new career, to change careers, and even pursue several careers in your lifetime. When asking yourself the question, what is the right career for me? Stop thinking short term and instead consider your entire time on this earth. If you take 100 years as your frame of reference, then there's no postponing it anymore. Whatever career aspirations that you may have, it has to happen in this life. Thinking in terms of a 100-year life will help you to let go of any limitations that you might have, and it will allow you to express your deepest desires. And you have time to do that. Your time horizon is no longer the next few years, what you're going to do in 5 years or even 10 years. You have your entire life to work on your career. You have a new canvas to work with. This is your 100-year dream, and these are the questions that you need to start asking yourself. In this 100-year life, what things would you need to have done so that at the end of your life you would have no regrets? What kind of work would you need to have done on this earth? What would you need to have contributed to the world and other people so that when the time comes and you leave this earth, you will do it with a smile and a sense of satisfaction, instead of with a nagging feeling that you did not live your life to the fullest? And it requires a lot of honesty and especially courage to answer that question. And some of you may still not be able to answer that question, perhaps because you're either too young or you're just too desensitized towards your own desires as a result of years of numbing, mindless corporate work. But most of you, if you're really honest with yourself, already know the answer. You know exactly what you want to do. You just haven't allowed yourself to dream all this while. When I switched my own thinking from the short term to the longest term and looked at my entire lifespan, I started thinking differently. Those fences I set up earlier in my career just started melting away. It was as though I was stepping on this very vast field and I could choose what plants, what flowers I wanted to grow and in what arrangement. And from there, I started plotting my life, my career plans freely. I started getting a good idea of what I wanted to do in my 30s, my 40s, and then my 60s, 80s, or perhaps even 90s. Yeah, perhaps I still wanted to do some part-time work, like working 2 to 5 hours a week in my 90s. All my career aspirations were contained in this 100-year dream, and there was time for everything. Each of my dreams, each of my career aspirations now had its place in my life. Setting up a 100-year dream is simple. Take a piece of paper and write down the decades coming up. And write down what kind of work you want to do in each of those decades. When you're doing that, you will feel a deep sense of freedom. You will feel that time is not that limited. I mean, it is limited in a way that you only have so much time. But you watching right now likely have decades ahead of you to pursue whatever career you wish. And I now want to answer the question, why am I sometimes still asking myself until this day, what is the right career for me? In one of my past videos, I once said, I think I found the right career, being a content creator. But you see, the thing is, a career is not a static thing. It is a living and breathing construct. Your interests change, you change, and you learn and discover new things about the world. And sometimes throughout that process, you realize that you need to change and that it's time to pivot, and that's okay. One of the most important things you need to do in the process of finding the right career for you is to be able to acknowledge to yourself that you're wrong. And yes, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you can be wrong about what you thought you wanted. In your 30s, you might have thought that being a writer is your dream job. But then throughout your 40s, you discover that interior design is what you want to do instead. I myself pivoted many times in my career, and each time it was a difficult process. But those pivots were what got me closer and closer to the career I loved. So what's your 100-year dream? Still don't know what you want? It takes time to figure things out. And if you want more videos on how to have a fulfilling and meaningful career, then make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Take care and don't give up finding that perfect career for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon again in the next video. Bye.